According to NYU's Furman Center, less than 50% of people living in New York City right now are native New Yorkers. 10 to 20% of those who come to New York City from out of state annually are NYU students. For those of us who are from places as far as South Asia and as near as New Jersey, where and what is home?
Hi, my name is Carolyn Cotillo. I'm a current graduate student at NYU Steinhardt studying counseling for mental health and wellness. And prior to that, I was a head teaching assistant for a class called The Science of Happiness at NYU for undergraduates, and I led recitations there for 8 years. So I love the field of positive psychology.
We have this acronym in positive psychology called PERMA, so PERMA. So it stands for positive emotions, engagement, relationships, meaning, and accomplishments. Home, I guess I want to think of, I want to think of anything through that lens of PERMA. Positive emotions can be sort of a hedonistic thing, like what just feels good. Familiar feels good. Especially in relationships, we do gravitate towards going back to things that are familiar.
I went to a lot of museums in LA because I was just surrounded by a bunch. And I went to elementary school where like going to museums was like the norm and like part of the curriculum. Sometimes I like going up to like the Met or like Central Park. And plus how SoCal is, it's like, you're constantly like faced with nature. And like it's a very comforting thing for me. I've had to learn how to like carve out my own like nature out here because it's like really hard to get what I got in California.
Something that my mom and I do a lot because my mom doesn't drive, so like we walk a lot, and when we walk we usually go to like the same few like places, like this bodega on the corner that I'm obsessed with, McDonald's. I'll like physically walk to McDonald's or I'll just order McDonald's because just like eating McDonald's just flavor, it just makes me want to.
Even just food, right? Thinking about someone's cultural food, that's like instantly, that sense of ours of taste and smell take us right back to a place or a time in our lives.
When my grandma was like alive, like and living with us at some point in my childhood, like I'd make her breakfast. Then when she passed, like it was like very hard. And so sometimes like I make breakfast on the stove the same way I used to make it for her, just to be like, oh, I miss my grandma, I'm thinking about her.
There's the deli that we talked about in that class one time. It's called Punjabi Deli. It's on Houston Street. It's like this little grocery store kind of situation. I wouldn't even call it a grocery store. It's really just like a bodega. And they have really good chai, as you know. And the people are really nice. And so I like get to speak to them in Punjabi, which is really nice. Like just speaking your own language is something that I didn't realize how much it could change the way that I feel about what I'm saying or who I'm talking to.
There's something special about people who understand those cultural norms from where we came from, certain kind of food that just takes us right back and feels good and comfortable. And then, relationships, our support systems are important to us, friends and family, being somewhat nearby.
For a fact that I could not physically go more than like a few months without seeing my mom, which is why I was like, I have to stay close to home or I will lose my mind. Sometimes I'll be like, when your mom calls you and you're like, what does this lady want? But then when I'm homesick, I'll be like, oh my God, my mom is calling me. Hi, Mom.
We, as a human species, are attached to our caregivers. Even if they go home and fight with their family, it's still family. And so we don't just make a new one.
My family wasn't really invested in my education, so it was kind of like hard because like I'd come home from college and they would ask certain questions about like my future, and it was just kind of like they don't understand, like they don't, and I get so frustrated. And then sometimes they're like, oh wow, like I'm so proud of you, you're almost done with like your first year of graduate school. And I'm like, oh wow, like this is like one of the rare times they say that. It makes me miss home.
I miss my parents a lot. I miss them being a present and active part of my life very much, in a way that I didn't think I would, given that parents have a tendency to be like overbearing and annoying in that kind of way. When you live with them, you're like, Like
You know, this is
just like let me be, you know.
But yeah.
Every time something happens or I need to make a decision or whatever, I just kind of do it myself, and then I like retell the story to them. So I talk to them really frequently on the phone.
I have always been of the mentality that like home doesn't necessarily have to be like a physical place. Sick, or like I get dry sick, or I just start to really miss the people. So I really think that like for me, home could hypothetically be like anywhere as long as like the people that I love the most are there. So